Sky stood frozen in the cold night air, Nathan's words echoing in her mind. I'm in love with you. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Everything in her screamed that this was another game, another manipulation, another carefully crafted line designed to pull her back in. But then she looked at him. Nathan Caldwell, the man who had ruined her life, the man who had tried to mold her into someone else, was standing there, unguarded. Vulnerable. He wasn't wearing his usual smirk. His hands weren't stuffed in his pockets like he didn't have a care in the world. He looked terrified. And that scared her more than anything. Say it again, Sky whispered, her breath visible in the cold night air. Nathan took a slow step forward. I love you. The words felt dangerous, like something that could burn her alive. Sky clenched her fists. Do you even know what love is, Nathan? Or is this just another one of your bets? Pain flashed in his eyes, but she didn't let it soften her. I was an idiot, he admitted. I thought I could control everything, but you, he let out a frustrated breath, running a hand through his hair. You broke every rule I had. And I hated it. I fought it. But I can't anymore. His voice dropped lower. I love you, Sky. Not because you're my wife on paper. Not because of this deal. But because you're the strongest, most fearless person I've ever met. She swallowed hard. That doesn't erase what you did. I know. His jaw tightened. And I don't expect you to forgive me overnight. But if you give me a chance, I'll spend the rest of my life proving to you that I mean it. A long silence stretched between them. Sky had never been good at trusting people. And Nathan had given her every reason to run. But damn it. She still wasn't ready to let him go. One condition, she said finally. Nathan straightened. Anything. Sky's eyes burned with a challenge. No more lies. Nathan held her gaze, and then, slowly, he nodded. No more lies. She didn't fully trust him yet. But maybe, just maybe, she could learn how. Nathan kept his word. For the first time since she had met him, Sky saw a different man. He didn't try to buy her forgiveness with expensive gifts. He didn't smirk his way out of difficult conversations. He simply showed up, every day, in every small way that mattered. And that? That was new. But trust wasn't something Sky could just hand back like it was nothing. One evening, they sat across from each other at the grand dining table. This time, it wasn't an act. There were no cameras, no press, just them. Nathan cleared his throat. Michael came by today. Sky stiffened. What did he want? Nathan's grip on his glass tightened. To remind me that I lost the bet. He seemed to think I'd be upset about that. She studied him. And are you? Nathan leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. The bet doesn't matter anymore. Her stomach twisted. It mattered enough for you to marry me. Nathan exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. I know. And I'll regret that mistake for the rest of my life. Something about the way he said it felt real. And that? That scared her more than anything. She set down her fork. So what now? Nathan held her gaze. Now, we figure out if this is real. Sky swallowed. And if it isn't? A small smirk ghosted over his lips. Then you walk away. No strings. No deals. Just freedom. Freedom. For so long, that had been the one thing she wanted. So why did the thought of leaving him feel so much harder than it should? Sky didn't leave. Not because she forgave him. Not because she trusted him. But because a part of her, the part she didn't want to admit existed, wanted to see if Nathan Caldwell was truly capable of change. The next few weeks felt different. The tension between them shifted. Nathan was still himself, sharp, calculating, impossibly confident, but there was patience now. No more demands. No more ultimatums. Just small gestures that didn't feel like part of a game. Like the morning she found a cup of coffee waiting for her in the sunlit breakfast nook, made exactly how she liked it. Or the way he started asking about her past, not out of curiosity, but because he genuinely wanted to know. Or the moment she caught him staring at one of her sketchbooks, the one she had tucked away in her closet, filled with drawings she hadn't let anyone see. "Did you draw these?" he had asked, flipping through the pages. Sky had frozen. She never showed anyone her art. But Nathan's expression wasn't mocking. It wasn't calculated. It was genuine. "They're beautiful," he had said. "You should be doing this for a living." She had scoffed. "Right. Because the art world is just waiting for a former homeless girl with zero connections." Nathan had met her gaze, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. "Then let's make them notice you." And just like that, he started opening doors for her. Not in a way that felt like he was throwing money at her problems. Not in a way that made her feel small. Just, opportunities. People he knew. Galleries that might take a chance on an unknown artist. He never pushed. Never pressured. And that? That was new. Sky had spent her whole life fighting to survive. But for the first time, she wasn't doing it alone. And that terrified her more than anything. Sky wasn't used to softness. Her life had been a series of battles, against hunger, against the cold, against the world that had long decided she wasn't worth saving. Survival had been her only priority. But now? Now she found herself in a place where she didn't have to fight every second of the day. Nathan had always been untouchable to her, cold, calculating, dangerous. But lately, he felt different. She noticed it in the small things. The way he stood a little closer when they were out in public, as if shielding her from the judgmental stares of high society. The way he no longer acted like he was in control of everything. The way he listened. One night, as they sat by the fireplace in the Grand Lounge, Nathan spoke, his voice quieter than usual. "My mother loved art," he said, staring into the flames. "She used to take me to galleries every weekend." Sky blinked. "I didn't think you were the kind of guy to grow up around paintings." Nathan gave a small, hollow smile. "I wasn't. My father hated it. Thought it was a waste of time. A distraction from the real world." He hesitated. "She died when I was 12. After that, my father made sure I only focused on things that mattered." Sky watched him, her chest tightening. She had always assumed Nathan was born cruel. That he had never known what it was like to be powerless. But maybe she had been wrong. "I get it," she murmured. "Losing someone. Having the world tell you that you have to be something you're not." Nathan looked at her then, his expression unreadable. "What did the world tell you to be?" he asked. Sky let out a breath. "Invisible." Something in Nathan's gaze shifted. Slowly, carefully, he reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "You were never invisible," he said softly. "I see you, Sky." Her heart stumbled. She should have pulled away. Should have ignored the warmth blooming in her chest. But she didn't. Because for the first time in her life, someone did see her. And that? That was terrifying. Sky couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind tangled in thoughts she didn't want to have. Nathan's voice still echoed in her head. "I see you, Sky." She hated how much those words had unraveled her. Because the truth was, no one had ever said that to her before. People had looked past her, over her, through her, but no one had ever truly seen her. And now? Now she was trapped in this impossible situation where the man who had once destroyed her was slowly becoming the one person she didn't want to lose. She groaned, throwing the covers off. Sitting with her feelings wasn't an option. She needed a distraction. Quietly, she slipped out of bed and padded down the hall. The mansion was silent, dark except for the faint glow coming from Nathan's study. She hesitated. Go back to bed, Sky. But her feet carried her forward before she could stop herself. The door was slightly open, and when she peeked inside, she found Nathan at his desk, sleeves rolled up, brows furrowed as he stared at an open laptop. A glass of whiskey sat untouched beside him. She knocked softly. Nathan looked up, startled. His expression softened when he saw her. Couldn't sleep. Sky stepped inside, wrapping her arms around herself. Something like that. Nathan leaned back in his chair, studying her. What's on your mind? She hesitated. I don't know how to do this. His brows furrowed. Do what? Sky exhaled sharply, pacing the room. This. Us. Every time I start thinking that maybe, just maybe. I can trust you, I remember the bet. The way you lied. And then I feel like an idiot for even being here. Nathan stood, his gaze never leaving hers. You're not an idiot, Sky. She let out a bitter laugh. Aren't I? I should have left the second I found out the truth. Nathan's jaw tightened. You still can. Her stomach twisted. Do you want me to? A long silence. Then, Nathan took a slow step forward. No. Her breath hitched. He kept walking until he was standing right in front of her, close enough that she could smell the faint scent of his cologne. I don't want you to go, he admitted, his voice lower now. But I'm not going to trap you here, Sky. If you stay, I want it to be because you choose to. Sky swallowed hard. And if I don't? Nathan's lips pressed into a thin line. Then I let you go. The words sent a sharp, unexpected pain through her chest. Because for the first time, she realized she didn't want to leave. Sky didn't answer. She just stood there, staring at Nathan, her mind caught in a war she didn't know how to win. If she left, she'd be free. No more uncertainty. No more second-guessing. No more him. But if she stayed, she'd have to accept the truth, that somewhere along the way, despite everything, she had started wanting him. Nathan's gaze softened. You don't have to decide tonight, he murmured. Sky exhaled shakily. I hate you for putting me in this position. A flicker of a smile crossed his lips. I know. She let out a frustrated groan and turned away, heading toward the door. She needed space. Air. Distance. But before she reached the threshold, Nathan spoke again. If you stay, he said carefully, we do this for real. Sky froze. Slowly, she turned to face him. What do you mean? Nathan took a step closer, his expression unreadable. No more contracts. No more deals. No more pretending. Sky's heart stumbled. Nathan. She struggled to find the right words. That's not. I know it won't be easy, he interrupted. I know I have a lot to prove. But I want to try. Silence stretched between them. Sky had spent her whole life running, from people, from pain, from the idea that anyone could truly care about her. But now, for the first time, she wasn't sure if she wanted to run. Instead of answering, she took a deep breath, walked up to him, and did the one thing neither of them expected. She reached out, and took his hand. Nathan's fingers tensed under hers. He stared at her, like he was waiting for her to pull away. But she didn't. Because maybe, just maybe, she wasn't ready to give up on this. Not yet. Nathan didn't move. For a man who thrived on control, who always had a plan, he looked utterly unprepared for this moment. For her. Sky kept her hand in his, watching the way his fingers twitched, like he wasn't sure whether to hold on or let go. He chose to hold on. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some grand romantic gesture. It was just a small, simple squeeze, hesitant, careful, like he knew how easy it would be to scare her off. "You're sure about this?" Nathan's voice was low, almost uncertain. Sky exhaled. "No." A small, humorless chuckle slipped from his lips. "Honest. I like that." She smirked faintly. "Yeah, well, you could use some honesty in your life." Nathan's expression darkened, but not with anger, with something heavier. "You're right," he admitted. "I spent years building walls to keep people out. And then you." He let out a breath, shaking his head. "You ruined that in weeks." Sky swallowed. "I didn't mean to." "I know," he said, his thumb brushing against her knuckles absent-mindedly. "But you did anyway." Her heart stumbled. She was used to people pushing her away. Ignoring her. Treating her like she didn't matter. But Nathan? Nathan was looking at her like she was the only thing in the room that did. And that terrified her. Sky took a slow step back, slipping her hand out of his. She needed space. Time. Nathan let her go. But he didn't look away. "You don't have to have all the answers right now," he said quietly. "Just don't shut me out." Sky met his gaze, her pulse hammering. For once, she didn't want to. Sky wasn't sure how to do this. How to be with someone. How to let someone in. But Nathan? He was trying. And that was more than she ever expected from him. Over the next few weeks, things shifted. The tension between them didn't disappear, but it changed. It was no longer sharp, no longer a battlefield of cold stares and sarcastic remarks. It was something else now. Something dangerous. Because Nathan was no longer just the arrogant billionaire who had trapped her in a deal. He was the man who noticed when she was overwhelmed and distracted her with dry humor. The man who listened when she talked about her past, even when she tried to downplay how bad it had been. The man who, despite his carefully curated image, showed up to a small art studio in the city one evening, surprising her. "You told me you wanted to start showing your work," he had said simply, standing in the doorway. Sky had blinked, confused. "Yeah." Nathan held up a business card. "I made some calls. They're interested in seeing what you can do." She had stared at him. No smugness. No expectation of gratitude. Just support. Her stomach twisted. "Why are you doing this?" Nathan met her gaze. "Because I want you to have the kind of chances you never got." Sky had no idea how to respond to that. And that was the problem. Because the more he did things like this, the more he chipped away at the walls she had spent her entire life building. And if she wasn't careful, he was going to break through. Sky hadn't painted in years. Not because she didn't love it, but because life had forced her to choose between surviving and chasing dreams. Dreams didn't fill your stomach. Dreams didn't keep you warm at night. But now. Now she stood in a sunlit studio, a blank canvas in front of her, and for the first time in forever, she had the luxury of trying. Nathan had made sure of it. She still wasn't sure why. He didn't pressure her. Didn't check in like he was waiting for something in return. He just gave her space to figure it out. And that? That was more terrifying than any of his money or power. Because if Nathan was real, if this wasn't just another performance, then she was in serious trouble. One afternoon, she caught him watching her from the doorway, arms crossed, eyes filled with something she couldn't quite read. "What?" she asked, setting her brush down. Nathan shrugged. "Just wondering if you've realized how good you are yet." Sky rolled her eyes. "Don't start with the billionaire pep talks." His lips twitched. "No pep talk. Just facts. She exhaled, looking down at the painting. It wasn't perfect. She wasn't perfect. But for the first time in her life, she wasn't trying to be. She was just creating. And maybe, just maybe, she was starting to believe she was good enough. Sky never thought she'd belong anywhere. Her whole life had been spent drifting, from place to place, struggle to struggle, battle to battle. But now she stood in a gallery, surrounded by her own paintings, listening as people whispered about her work with admiration instead of pity. She wasn't just Nathan Caldwell's wife. She was Sky Miller, an artist. And somehow, that mattered more than she ever thought it would. Nathan arrived late, dressed in his usual impeccable suit, but his eyes found hers instantly. He moved through the crowd like he belonged, like he owned the room, because he did. But when he reached her, his smirk was gone. Instead, he just looked at her with something softer. "Not bad," he murmured, glancing around at the paintings. Sky huffed a laugh. High praise from the great Nathan Caldwell. He tilted his head. "You never needed my approval, Sky. You did this on your own." She swallowed. He was right. But it still felt different knowing he was proud of her. Nathan hesitated. Then, in a rare moment of uncertainty, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Sky's stomach dropped. "Nathan. This isn't business," he said quietly, stepping closer. "It never was." She barely had time to react before he dropped to one knee. The entire gallery fell silent. "Sky," he said, his voice steady, certain in a way that made her chest ache, "I married you for all the wrong reasons. But somehow, through all of this, you became the only thing that's ever felt real to me." Sky's throat tightened. "I don't care about bets, or money, or what anyone else thinks. I just want you." He took a breath. "So I'm asking you, for real this time, will you marry me? Not because you have to. Not because of a deal. But because you want to." Sky's pulse thundered in her ears. She had every reason to say no. But she had one reason to say yes. Because somehow, against all odds, she loved him too. A slow, trembling smile broke across her face. "Yes," she whispered. Nathan exhaled sharply, like he had been holding his breath this whole time. Then he stood, slid the ring onto her finger, and kissed her. And this time, it wasn't part of a bet. It was real.